You ever just look at a map of the world and think, wow, the United States is massive. I mean, it stretches all the way from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific. But here's the thing. It wasn't always like that, not even a little bit.
So the big question is, how did it get so big? Was it just luck? Nope. The America you see on the map today was pieced together through some seriously smart deals, a few wars, and a whole lot of ambition. So yeah, let's dive right in.
All right, to really get a sense of just how huge this change was, we've got to jump in our time machine and go way, way back. First stop, the very beginning. Let's take a look at what the U.S. looked like when it was just born. Okay, so picture this. It's 1776. The U.S. has just declared independence. But it's not the giant country we know today. It's really just a skinny strip of 13 colonies huddled together on the Atlantic coast. Everything else to the west, that belonged to other European powers and, of course, Native American tribes. The idea that this tiny new country could one day stretch all the way to the Pacific, I mean, that was basically science fiction back then.
But that was all about to change, big time. And it all kicked off with what might just be the single greatest real estate bargain in the history of the world.
The first huge step westward happened in 1803. An opportunity just sort of fell into their laps, and it was a total game changer. I'm talking, of course, about the Louisiana Purchase. Check this out. For just $15 million, the U.S. bought a massive chunk of land from France. Napoleon needed cash like yesterday for his wars in Europe, so he was willing to sell. And the price? It worked out to pennies per acre. Seriously, it's probably the best deal ever. And just like that, with one signature, the United States literally doubled in size, overnight. They got control of the super important Mississippi River and pushed the country's border way, way into the middle of the continent. It was a massive transformation, instantly.
And they weren't done yet. Oh no, the momentum was building. Just a little while later, in 1819, they made a deal with Spain. Bam! Florida was now part of the U.S., pushing the country's territory even further south.
Okay, so with all that new land from the Louisiana Purchase, the country's leaders got a new idea in their heads. Their eyes turned west, and this set off a crazy, super fast race to reach the Pacific Ocean.
You know, the mid-1840s were just wild. It was this incredibly explosive period. In the span of only 3 years, the U.S. used every tool in the book, annexation, treaties, and even war, to finally achieve that dream of a nation that stretched from sea to shining sea. So, how did they pull it off so fast? Well, let's break it down. First up, 1845. Texas, which was its own country at the time, joins the United States. Then, 1 year later, a treaty with Great Britain locks down the Pacific Northwest. And finally, and this one was definitely the most controversial, the Mexican-American War ends in 1848. Mexico hands over a gigantic piece of the Southwest. We're talking California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, the whole shebang. And just like that, the coast-to-coast dream was real. But believe it or not, the map still wasn't finished. There were a couple of huge and very different puzzle pieces still left to put into place. Fast forward about 20 years to 1867. Another one of those unexpected phone calls, metaphorically speaking. This time, it's Russia. They had this massive territory way up in North America, Alaska, and they were worried they couldn't protect it. So they decided to sell. And the price? Get this, $7.2 million. For a piece of land more than twice the size of Texas. But at the time, people thought it was a joke, a complete waste of money. They called it an ice box, basically a giant, useless freezer.
Well, who's laughing now, right? Because later on, they discovered enormous amounts of gold and oil there. Suddenly, that icebox looked like one of the smartest buys in history. It turned into a deal that you've got to think Russia still kicks itself over.
All right, one last major piece to the puzzle, and this one takes us out into the middle of the Pacific Ocean. In 1893, the U.S. annexed the Kingdom of Hawaii. This was driven by business and military strategy, and it's a part of the story that's still very controversial today. So let's just step back and look at the big picture for a second. We start in 1776 with a tiny nation on the East Coast, and where do we end up? A colossal, continent-spanning country that's one of the biggest on the planet. I mean, the speed and scale of that growth is just mind-blowing. And there you have it. That's the story of how the United States was pieced together, through clever deals, big treaties, and tough conflicts that took it from a coastal nation to a global power. But it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Even though the borders on the map look pretty set, does the story of a country's expansion and its influence ever really, truly end?